When we think about money, something inside us involuntarily tightens, as if the very topic burns. Generation after generation, we've been taught to regard abundance with fear, shame, and mistrust, as if wanting more is a sin, as if striving for the good life makes a person superficial or less spiritual. But what if this is just an old illusion? What if your desire for abundance isn't greed but a natural impulse of the soul, seeking space, freedom, and expansion? After all, money isn't just paper and numbers. It's the energy of movement. It's an opportunity to express yourself, not in dreams but in reality. But deep down, a quiet, sticky shame lingers. Shame to want, shame to dream, shame to strive for ease. This shame isn't yours. It comes from parental phrases, social attitudes, and religious rules where modesty was confused with self-suppression and spirituality with suffering. And the less you want, the better. But the truth is, desire is a part of life. It doesn't destroy spirituality, it makes it alive. When we acknowledge our desires, we reclaim our power. We stop being children waiting for permission. We become mature souls who hear their inner voice. Try to say to yourself honestly, I want to live freely. I want space, beauty, stability. I want travel, joy, opportunity. I want to thrive, not just for myself, but to share. Why should this be shameful? Why is receiving worse than giving? Spirituality isn't a rejection of the world. It's a presence in it. It's the ability to love, create, and accept. Within each of us lives an inner voice that fears stepping beyond the bounds of what is permitted. It whispers, "You're asking too much. Don't be impudent. Don't stand out." This voice seems reasonable, but in reality, it's a guardian of old programs. Programs that were passed down to us not as truth, but as a way to survive in another time, in another era. Our ancestors lived in a reality where abundance was an unattainable luxury, where dreaming was dangerous, where life demanded silence and frugality. Their fear is not their fault, but it has become our legacy. And so a conflict is born within us. The soul reaches for space, while the consciousness clings to limitations. Jung said, "What is not consciously recognized controls destiny." While we don't notice our inner inhibitions, they lead us by the hand, refusing opportunities, fearing success, pushing away life's gifts. Therefore, the path begins with honesty. Not with hard work, not with motivation, not with visualization, but with honesty. Look within and ask, what do I really want? Whose fear is this that's too much? Who implanted in me the idea that wanting is shameful? Every sincere answer liberates. Every step toward truth restores strength, because the moment you allow yourself to want, you open the door to something new. Not external, but internal. You no longer need to be small to be accepted. You no longer need to be comfortable to be good. You no longer have to choose between your soul and wealth. The soul is not against money. The soul is against fear. When agreement appears within, money ceases to be a threat. It becomes an extension of your energy, your clarity, your maturity. Money isn't a goal. It's a mirror. It reflects not your abilities, not your luck, but what you deeply feel about yourself. If the conviction, "I'm unworthy," lingers within you, you will unconsciously push away every opportunity. If the thought, "asking is shameful," lingers within you, you will remain silent even when you deserve more. If you believe that happiness must be earned through suffering, every joy will cause anxiety. But when you begin to look at this honestly, an inner alchemy begins. Alchemy isn't magic. It's the maturation of the soul. This is the moment when you finally ask yourself the real questions. Who told me that wealth is dangerous? Why do I believe I have to be small to be loved? Who benefits from me hiding my power? And suddenly, the realization dawns. Many thoughts about money are not yours. They come from someone else's pain, from someone else's era, from someone else's fears. But you don't have to continue this scenario. When you release the shame of your desires, there's no need to hide. You stop seeing life through the eyes of a wounded child. and begin to see yourself through the eyes of a mature, whole soul, then money becomes not something to be earned, but something that begins to flow where there is honesty, clarity, and acceptance, not because you tried hard enough, but because you stopped resisting, stopped shrinking, stopped being less than yourself. Imagine a child bringing their first drawing to an adult. There's hope in their eyes, an attempt to express themselves in their hands. They hold out the sheet of paper with the most honest look, "This is me." But instead of warmth, there's a cold gaze. Instead of recognition, there's criticism. Instead of support, there's silence. And it's not the drawing that's crumbling. The connection with oneself is crumbling. Many of us have exactly the same story with money. We bring our labor, our care, our inspiration to the world. And in response, we hear, "Not enough." You overestimate yourself. Who are you to ask for more? And it's not the work that freezes inside. Our sense of self-worth freezes. We begin to believe that our contribution is insufficient, that it's better not to ask, that it's safer to remain silent. That comfort isn't for us, but the truth is, abundance is not a reward, nor is it compensation. This is the natural state of a soul that has the courage to be itself. Shame about money is not spirituality. It's a mask of fear of one's own power, because abundance requires maturity. It requires being visible. It requires telling the world, "I exist and I am worthy." This is frightening. But it is at this moment that the real transition begins. From survival to creativity. From fear to trust. From contraction to expansion. When you allow yourself abundance, you don't become greedy. You become alive, because money doesn't make a person better. It only enhances what is already within them. If you have love, money enhances love. If you have clarity, it expands clarity. If you have pain, it will make it more visible, but only so you can finally see where it comes from. Therefore, the path to abundance doesn't begin with your wallet. It begins with an internal return to value, from the question, "Where did I once give up on myself?" and from the decision, "I don't live like this anymore." There's a moment when something clicks inside, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, almost imperceptibly. And suddenly you understand everything you've been trying so desperately to achieve isn't about proving yourself, but about being. When you stop chasing, life stops running away. Abundance comes not when you're trying your hardest, but when you enter a state of inner agreement. "I can. I am worthy. I don't have to suffer to receive." And then a lot changes. You no longer hold on to money out of fear. You treat it as a flow. It comes, you can give it away, and it returns again. You stop hiding your desires. You stop explaining, justifying, belittling yourself. You become more honest, and honesty is magnetic. The same actions can produce different results for two people, not because one is lucky, but because one has inner permission while the other has shame and inhibitions. Permission opens doors, shame closes them. The path to abundance is a path of inner maturity. It requires gentleness, patience, and honesty with yourself, because old patterns return. Fear sometimes rises, doubts whisper in the same old voices. But now you know this is not a sign to stop, it is a sign of growth. Every time you choose trust over guilt, presence over panic, sincerity over a mask, you expand. And money responds to this expansion, not as a command, not as manipulation, but as a natural resonance. It comes not because you deserve it, but because you have opened up. It comes not because you are in control, but because you are in harmony with yourself. And then the world suddenly becomes generous. Not magically, but generously. Because you've stopped fighting for a place in it. You've accepted that you already have one. We've been taught our whole lives to be convenient, not loud, inconspicuous, not too successful, not too confident, not too radiant. Too much is a word many of us have been tamed with, but the soul doesn't know how to be a little bit. It's either alive or suppressed. It's either on fire or hiding. And when a quiet call for abundance, for freedom, for a greater scale rises within you, it's not a whim. It's your true nature revealing itself. Jung said that a person becomes themselves only when they stop trying to be someone else. And that's the key. Not money, not success, not status, but the fact that you stop living by other people's fears. Because money doesn't come where a person is afraid of themselves. It comes where there's space for it. Space isn't a bank account. It's your inner I can. When you allow yourself to be brighter, wider, deeper, the world responds. People are drawn to you. Opportunities arise where there was once emptiness. And the fear that rises at this moment is not an enemy. It doesn't say stop. It says you're moving beyond the old. This is always scary and always right, because growth isn't comfort, growth is honesty. The honesty of saying to yourself, I'm not small. I don't have to fit into other people's expectations. I can want, I can have. And it is at this moment that the soul stops hiding. You begin to walk a path where abundance is not a luxury, but the natural companion of wholeness. Being visible is one of the greatest challenges for the soul, not because the world is cruel, but because the memory has lingered within for too long. If I'm noticed, I'll be judged. If I rise, I'll be thrown down. If I shine, I'll be rejected. It's an ancient fear. The fear of those times when being invisible was a way to survive, when silence saved, when dreams were forbidden, when success seemed dangerous. But times have changed and the inner shadows have not. They still whisper to us, beware, when we take a step forward. And that's why visibility today is not just a social skill, it's a spiritual practice. Because being visible means being honest, being real, being yourself without a mask. It's not about being loud, it's about presence. When you stop hiding your desires, when you stop minimizing your talents, when you stop playing the role of modest to please, something amazing happens. A support appears within. The very same support that cannot be taken away by money, status, or loss. A support based not on external success, but on inner harmony with oneself. And then appearances cease to be frightening. They become a consequence of maturity. Because a person who is at peace with themselves is not afraid of being noticed. They fear only one thing: to betray themselves again for the sake of someone else's peace of mind. And this is where true abundance begins. Not monetary, but energetic. An abundance of life force which flows freely when you don't cage yourself. Then money becomes just one form of this flow, not the main one, not the defining one, just one of them. Because true strength is not in having, but in being alive, being honest, being brave, being yourself to the end. At some point, a person tires of fighting, not for money, not for recognition, but for the right to simply be themselves. This fatigue doesn't destroy, it purifies. It becomes a quiet door through which a new stage begins. We're used to thinking that abundance comes through effort, through tension, through constantly proving. But this is just an old program, a survival program. True abundance comes not through constriction, but through relaxation. Not through control, but through trust. When you stop pushing life, life stops resisting. When you stop clinging, space appears in your hands, and space always fills. And this isn't about laziness, not about passivity. It's about inner knowledge. I don't need to tear myself away. What's mine will find me. Trust isn't believing in miracles, it's believing in yourself. You no longer go against your soul, you don't suppress your desires, you don't betray yourself for the sake of other people's expectations. And then the world begins to speak to you differently. Not with harsh lessons, but with gentle signs. Not with closed doors, but in unexpected ways. Because trust creates flow. And flow always brings resources, people, ideas, money, inspiration. And at that moment, you understand that before your efforts were unsuccessful not because you weren't good enough, but because you did everything out of fear. And fear always constricts. It prevents energy from moving. When fear gives way to trust, everything begins to flow. And then money ceases to be a goal and becomes confirmation. You are in harmony with yourself. You no longer live out of need. You live out of fullness. And it is this that attracts abundance. We don't come into this world empty-handed. We're already filled with voices, fears, and beliefs, the legacy of those who came before us. And many of these beliefs aren't about us, but about someone else's experience, someone else's pain, someone else's times. We were taught, the rich are shameless. Money is earned through hard work. Keep your head down, you'll be safe. First earn it, then ask. And we grew up not realizing that we were living inside a script that wasn't ours. But there comes a moment when our soul begins to whisper, This is not my path. This moment is a turning point, because that's when you begin to see what you thought was character was often just a program. What seemed like humility was fear. What seemed like realism was a lack of trust in yourself and life. And that's where true maturation begins, creating your own path. Paths where your desires are not a sin but a compass, your strength is not a danger but a resource, your abundance is not a threat but a natural state. One of the boldest steps is to realize that you are no longer obligated to reproduce someone else's story. You can say, yes, that's how I was taught, but I choose differently. You choose to live not out of fear of loss but out of inner abundance, not out of trying to fit in but out of agreement to be yourself. And when the script changes within, life resonates from without. You begin to notice opportunities that previously passed you by. You begin to attract people who see your strength, not your shadow. You begin to feel that abundance comes not as a heavy burden but as a natural flow. Creating a new script is not a one-time leap. It is a path, but every step is a return to yourself. Every decision is a liberation. Every I can is a building block for a new reality. Because abundance doesn't come from outside, it unfolds from within. There is a state that cannot be faked. It cannot be faked, it cannot be forced out of oneself. It is a state of inner harmony when there is no longer a war with oneself. There is no struggle between can and cannot. There is no gap between what one wants and what one should. It is not euphoria, not a motivational surge, not a flash of inspiration. It is a quiet, deep knowledge. I am in my place. I am in my truth. When a person enters this state, life begins to flow differently. Not because they have become lucky, not because they know the secrets of success, but because they have stopped acting out of fear. Fear creates tension, and tension always blocks flow. Agreement gives birth to relaxation, and relaxation opens doors. In this state, decisions are made more easily, opportunities are noticed more quickly, people respond more sincerely, money comes more naturally, because you are no longer clinging. You choose, you go where you feel alive, and you move away from what's constricting you. Flow isn't about passivity, it's about clarity. You no longer try to control every step. You sense direction, like a river that knows where to flow even if there are twists and turns and obstacles ahead. And in this state, money becomes not a goal but a side effect of clarity, your honesty, your inner presence. It comes to those who can accommodate it, to those who don't hide their power, to those who trust life enough to let it take care of them. Because the flow always supports those who follow their truth. It's not magic, it's maturity. And it is maturity that makes life full and abundance natural. Support the channel with comments, likes, and a subscription to see new videos. Thanks for watching.